Welcome to Food is Fuel episode 2. The other day I was at this supermarket shopping unsupervised, which means I buy all sorts of things I don't actually need, and I bought this Fuel 10K protein breakfast sport drink. And I bought this because it reminded me about a time when I did not fuel my body effectively, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about that experience and then what I know now as an athlete and an exercise professional on how to best make sure my body has the energy to do everything that I need it to do. So meet Rob. He's the novice Spartan athlete. This is in 2018, and this photo is taken midway through my first Spartan Beast. So the Spartan Beast is a 22 kilometer 40 obstacle race, and I didn't know all that much going into this race. Prior to this, I had successfully completed a 7 and a 14 kilometer race. And there was an information pack put out by Spartan, and it recommended for races longer than 2 hours to make sure that you carried nutrition with you on course and a hydration pack. The hydration pack was easy, and when it came to nutrition on the course, I didn't really know much. And I just remembered seeing something like this put out, partnered by Spartan. It was a protein-based something that they recommended consuming during the race for all your energy needs. Now, at this stage, I knew enough to be dangerous, to myself that is, but not enough to be effective. So I bought one of the bars, whatever it was, and I tried it, and I didn't really like it. And I thought to myself, I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. I need protein. That's what I need for my nutrition on the race. I don't like this protein. It doesn't taste good. It's expensive. I don't like being marketed to. So I'm like, I'm just going to go and try all these other protein-based bars, drinks, all sorts of things. And I'm like, I'm going to find one that I like, and that's going to be my race nutrition. So that is what I did. And then I remember adding one little extra item. I put some chocolate coated coffee nuts in there. I like coffee beans because I was like, some extra caffeine can't help. Race is difficult, and then I got to the point where I started to feel really flat. I started to feel hungry. I was like, so this is why they said bring some nutrition on the course, and I started to eat it, but it didn't help. I wasn't feeling like I was getting any energy out of it. Instead, I started to feel bloated. My stomach got all gassy, and no matter how much I ate, it didn't really help. And then by the end of the race, I was cramping terribly. I had a headache. I'd finished the race, but I was like, man, this was much harder than I thought it was going to be. And then when I decided to go even further and do a longer race, I was like, well, I really need to get a better handle on this. So that's when I originally enrolled in my studies to be an exercise professional. My original motivation was because I wanted to train myself better. I wanted to know how everything worked so that I could design a way for me to successfully complete all the races that I do. So now that I am an exercise professional, what do I know? When it comes to food, I guess there's four main, people call them macronutrients. I would just call them building blocks of the food. They're the sort of Lego blocks that make up our food. And we've got carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and alcohol. And then if we go just the next level down and we look at, well, carbohydrate, what's its function? It's primarily used for energy. And then what else about carbohydrates? We have a very limited storage capacity for them. We can only store up to about 500 grams at a time, and we store it as glycogen. We store that in the muscle tissues and in our liver. And then when we look at fat, it's got biological functions, but it's also used for energy as well. And we have a much greater capacity for storing fat than we do carbohydrate. Hence the pictures. We've got a very small fuel can for carbs, and then we've got a massive fuel tank for fat. We can carry a lot of it. And proteins, what's protein used for? Well, primarily it's used for the growth, repair, and maintenance of our body's tissues. So muscle, skin, organs, that sort of thing. It's basically the building block of the body. It can be used for energy, but not often. And then if we look at alcohol, well, what's alcohol used for? Some people say it's just fuel for bad decisions. I'm going to say I've made plenty of great decisions while drinking, and I've also made plenty of bad decisions while sober. So I guess your mileage may vary with that. And so those are the functions of the different bits of the food that we eat. And then if we look at the amount of energy contained within them per gram of carbohydrate, we've got 4 grams. For fat, that's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate. For fat, it's 9 calories per gram. For protein, it's 4 calories per gram. And in alcohol, we've got 7 calories per gram. So when we look at the food that we eat, what we're beginning to see is that certain types of food are used for different things in the body, and also that the different types of food have a different amount of energy in them. And so when it comes to energy, what does that actually mean physiologically and biologically in the body? And the body uses adenosine triphosphate as its main source of energy. Now that's a molecule. It's got all these chemical bonds, and what the body does is it goes and smashes it up, kind of like a really bad breakup when there's just this massive explosion and everything just gets let out. Think of that with ATP. We smash that up, and then we use the energy that's released in our cells to do work. And then we have 3 energy systems, and their job is to put that ATP, the adenosine triphosphate molecules, back together again so that we can smash them up for energy again. And the 3 main energy systems we have is the phosphate energy system. It's an explosive energy system, so it's for high intensity, low duration. We've got the lactate energy system, which is more of a medium intensity, medium duration. And then we've got the aerobic energy system, which is a low intensity, long duration. And the body mixes and matches as our energy demands change and depending on what fuel we have available. So looking further into it, the phosphate energy system, as I said, is for maximum effort over a very short duration, and it uses the creatine phosphate molecules to put the ATP back together again. And then when we look at the lactate energy system, it's for the medium intensity, medium duration activities, and we take glycogen, which is how we store the carbohydrates in the body, and then we mix that with lactate, and that chemical reaction is what we use to put the ATP molecules back together. And the byproduct of that is lactic acid, which is often the burning sensation we feel if we've been doing, sprinting and running for, a long time. And then our last energy system, the aerobic energy system, which is for our low intensity, long duration type energy demands. It uses oxygen, hence why it's called aerobic, in the presence of oxygen, and it mixes oxygen and carbohydrates to create energy through a chemical reaction called the Krebs cycle. Now, protein can be processed through here, but it's much harder to do, and it's done in much lower quantities. So primarily, it's oxygen plus carbohydrates and fats for energy, and the byproduct is water and CO2. So if we recap that, and this is everything that I know now that I wish I knew back then, is that protein is primarily used for building, repairing, and maintaining the body and its tissues. Think muscle, hair, skin. And then when it comes for energy, we get our energy from carbohydrates and fats. Those are the bits of food that actually give us energy. That is the fuel component of it. And then what's most important from a carbohydrate perspective, especially when we're looking, or a fueling perspective, when we're looking at whether that's sports or just wanting to get the most out of our exercises, carbohydrates are very important because the body can only store a limited amount at a time. So we want to make sure that we're continually topping that up. And we also want to make sure that before we start, that our supplies are topped up. So we go in with our glycogen stores fully replenished. It's also important because it's used in 2 of the 3 energy systems, and it's a requirement for us to access the energy stored as fat. So that is why, from a fueling perspective, carbohydrates are highly important. And then when you look at a fuel drink, 10K in the store that's mostly protein, low on carbohydrates, low on fats, this isn't really going to fuel you very well. It'll be good for after the exercise to start repairing your body's muscles or building the body's muscles. And I just want to conclude by putting it this way. Imagine you were a car, and again, please don't try this at home, and you wanted to get the most performance out of it. You wouldn't put engine oil in the fuel tank. It probably won't catch on fire like in this image, but you're definitely not going to perform at your best.